Hi, I'm Jennifer Branch. Today I'm going to show you how to paint a beautiful palm tree from my trip to Charleston. Palm trees are very exciting to paint because of the layers and layers of things happening. There's shadows, there's bright white highlights, and it's all built on top of each other and very fun to paint. So let's get started. Happy painting! I start off this gorgeous palm tree with just pale yellow wash on cold pressed paper. I'm using my squirrel brush because that way it's really loose and everything flows nicely. Now the really interesting part about this painting is layers. Palm trees are layers upon layers of these wonderful fronds. And in order to do that, you need to do multiple layers in your painting and let it dry in between those layers. So you do a wash and you let it dry, if not bone dry, most of the way. After I've painted the Azo Yellow all over the painting, I drop in some Quin Gold. And you can see where the wax resist that I put down on the white, it's resisting there, and I'll go back later and I'll add a little bit more on the yellow and golds and some of the other colors. A little bit of cadmium red in there. Nice and bright. I want a really warm glow behind the cool blues and greens that I'll put in later washes. Now I'm just going along, and you definitely need a squirrel or natural hair brush for this part, because you want the lost and found edges and the little bits of white that didn't quite get painted. And this is why I'm using cold pressed paper. I don't need quite the texture. It's not a texture painting, but I do need a lot going on in the lost and found little bits. I'm using cool blues in the background, and I'm going right on over the shadow part. You don't want to paint around. It's not a paper cutout of a palm tree. It's a painting of a palm tree. So go right over the shadow part of the palm and just have fun. Let your brush flow, but you also want to make sure those highlights, some of those highlights, the only way we're going to see them because white reflects on the palm fronds, and that's all you see is white. It's just a white glare. So go around some edges, so negative painting, and pull it right into some areas. And even though I let this dry in between the golds and reds layer and the blue sky layer, you notice that it's still going to blur a little bit right into those shadows right there. It's still going to blur a little bit, and you can really tell the difference here. All the negative painting that I did on those leaves is really showing up with the bright blue sky. So really cool sky and warm tree. And the trunk's a little bit cooler. The trunk was actually the most interesting part of this to paint. So I'm going over around the painting with green now. And I used Pthalo Green with a little bit of Azo Yellow added, or a little bit Azo Yellow with a little bit of Pthalo Green added, because it's just a little bit strong, but it's a clear, vibrant green. And the palm tree is a little bit, see, I want to make sure that I leave some of the whites in there. I want to make sure that I leave plenty. The palm tree is a little bit brown. It's early spring. So when I took the pictures for this painting, did the video, and so it's a little bit browned. It's just having that new spring green where, yes, they're evergreen, but it definitely renews at the beginning of the summertime. Notice how all the negative painting in that makes a difference. And now the next wash, where I've gone in and I've pulled some more out with wax crayon, and I'm layering it on top of that. That just makes all the difference. This painting is all about layers upon layers. So I'm not, painting around every single thing. I'm there's multiple layers of these palm fronds, and they create shadows on each other and behind each other. And I like that effect. When a lot of times when I'm painting something and I want those lost and found edges, a really quick, easy way to do that is to paint a little bit darker than I want it, or a lot darker than I want it, and then I blot it quick, and just enough, it kind of a ghost effect survives. So if you're doing that on something really dark, then it actually would pull some of the paint and leave a little bit of the color, so you would get a negative painting sort of effect. But here I just wanted a little bit, there's some leaves back there, they're brown, end of the year ones, last year's ones, and then a couple little white highlights still showing up. But I didn't want anything too harsh. That's not a focus. But the interesting curl on that leaf, that's really beautiful, isn't it? How it flows. So I'm just going around. Oh, and I've switched to the Sable brush because it has more of a point. So for the loose stuff, squirrel. For the tighter, a little bit more precise, I want these things to show up, and see how I blotted that. Then I use a Sable. So just playing with the brush, letting it dance around, doing those palm fronds in the wind. I've got it's really stark warm against the cool blue of the sky, so I'm still dealing with burnt sienna and other very warm, rich colors. Now you have to be careful. I did use wax in there. You have to be careful when you're using a technique like the blotting. Don't use it every single place in the painting. It just gets a little bit old. It's a little bit too much. Use it in a couple places that need it, and then let it be. So I'm just moving around the whole painting like I normally do. And I kind of like to move one color around. Just have it. Now this is where it gets, I love doing this on palms. It's the shadows on top of the shadows, and then the white highlighted palm fronds are showing on top of it, and there's a little bit of backlighting going in, and that's fun. That's a lot of fun to paint. Burnt sienna with a little bit of ultramarine blue in there. And just a little bit of that ultramarine blue dulls it down enough where it's these deep, rich shadows. I'll see how this little bit of negative painting really makes that come. You can just see it appearing, emerging. Now the trunk is really interesting because it's a palm tree, so it's a brown trunk, but it's this cool blue with these really neat orangey highlights in there. So that's tricky because cool blue mixed with orange is kind of a warm, muddy, greeny, browny color. And that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for cool blue, and yes, it's a brown trunk, but there's all those little highlights on there, and it's just dusted with it, and there's a little bit of chalky color in there. And see how it's getting interesting? And you can't do that sort of thing in one layer. That needs to be done in multiple layers over and over itself. So paint, blot, pull some out, use a little bit of gouache for the chalky, This is the foundations I'm starting. You see, it was the cobalt and then moving to the ultramarine. And don't give up this opportunity to do this great negative painting where those fronds are overlapping there. That's perfect. That's just what you need. That's what gives it depth. Now just touches of this to give it that extreme dark, because it is a brown trunk. It's very cool too. And you can really see the difference after it's dried a tiny bit. And I blotted it up at the right before it was completely dry. So just a couple spots got blotted. And it's neat how it makes this kind of basket work pattern on there. I love cabbage palms. I think they're the most interesting to paint. Coconut palms are great, and I love coconuts, but the trunks on these are just fascinating. And they always change. They really show up. Both the palm fronds and the trunks just show every little bit of every color around it. So if it's a blue sky, there'll be little blue hints in there. If it's sunset, you'll see the oranges. It just depends on what's around it, and it reflects all of that. It's like little mirrors. Now I decided that it was just a little dead looking with the sky. I had done my cool sky, but it was just a little too cool. So I'm warming it up with some Pthalo Blue and a little bit of Cobalt Teal in there. And this is just a very loose wash. I'm having to be a little bit more detailed on the previous because I don't want to destroy my highlights, but I do want to go right in any of the shadows. So this is tricky. It's better if you get the color right the first time. And, if you have a color in one place, always have it in two other places. So, plus it's exactly the warm blue that I need in there. It's tricky going around the highlights without making it look cut out. So the best thing is just to be very loose and very pale wash if you're doing something like this. So just keep that brush moving, and you do not want it to dry. That would be bad. And if it's something like that where you have a little bit too much, just blot it out. Work around it. It's not going to bleed so badly the next time. This is paint. You can play with it. That's what we're doing this for. Just moving around the entire painting. Pulling it into the shadows, preserving the highlights. And the very slight change on there changes it from kind of a overcast day to the beautiful bright blue sunny day it was. Very subtle changes can make a huge difference in watercolor paints. So if you do ever want to change a wash like this, stay light, stay loose, and don't worry if you end up blurring it more than you want to somewhere and the color's bleeding all over the place. Blot it up. If you feel like it needs it, you can wait till it dries and do some more, but it really is better to do it all at once. And something like this, you don't really know exactly how cool you want it until you've painted the entire painting. So this is something that I frequently have to do. You have to change your paintings. You have an idea of where you're going, and everything needs to go with that. But change your paintings, adapt. they're going to change constantly, and watercolor's making the most of being able to adapt quickly. Now all that's left after that is to sign it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe to see more videos. And if there's anything that you want to see me paint, I am looking for great ideas for lessons that y'all would like. Please visit my website at paintingwatercolor.com and let me know what you'd like to see. Happy painting!